Okay, everybody, Mr. Wagner here. Today, what we are going to do is we are going to work on that base and we're going to see if we can get that scrolling. And by scrolling, I kind of mean like this. Let's take a look at just a typical Flappy Bird clone on the internet. And I want you to notice this bottom line here. This is our base. And notice how that is scrolling, okay? And what we want to do is we want to get our scrolling. And you see this scrolling technique in a lot of side scroller type games. In fact, there's a term for it. It's called parallax scrolling, where you end up having the background scroll a little bit slow, and then like a foreground scroll a little bit faster, and you can get some depth in your games that way. Anyway, so that's what we're going to work on today. And to that end, let's get started. Right now we're on Flappy Birds 3. I'm going to go ahead and hit run so you see what we have. Okay, so this is a base of it, and it's obviously not scrolling. Okay, so let's take a look at what we actually have here. And if I scroll down, basically we're just drawing the screen. We're just drawing that base image at a particular rectangle place, okay? Now, the way that these side scrollers work is basically you have the base, and the base has to be bigger than, you know, the width of the background image. But what you do is you basically blit the same image twice, but side by side. For instance, if I have a couple of, let's see if I can put these together like this. If this is base image 1 and then this is base image 2, then what we do is every frame we just scoot it over a little bit further, and then this part, eventually this one will get completely out of the frame, and then it'll be recycled over to here, and then recycled over to here, and then recycled over to here. Kind of hard to understand, but I think as you go through this lesson, you'll see that basically all we have is two images, and they just move side by side together. Okay, so now we basically need to do two things. One is we need to blit the image twice, okay? And then two, we also need to update the image rectangles to tell us where we're going to be blitting our images. Okay, so well, you know, right now we're here at line 51 where we're blitting the images. Let me go ahead and let's go ahead and blit this image twice. Okay, so Command C and Command V. Now, if I did this, all it would do is it would draw the first image, and then it would draw the second image right over top of it. Again, we need to have the rectangles be different. Now, the way we do that, let's just create a couple new rectangles, because that way we can just mess with the rectangles and it'll all be good. So I'm going to screen blit base image and base rectangle, but I'm going to say rectangle 1. We don't have that variable in there yet, or that object inside the base object yet, but we'll do that. And let's do a 2 also. So we got rect 1 and rect 2. And then I'm going to throw in one other thing in here that we don't have yet. We're going to write this little bit of code, but that is basically base.update. And we are going to have an update function within that foreground object that will allow us to move those rectangles around. Okay? All right. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to scooch on up here to foreground. See, here's foreground. And lines 21 and lines 22, that's where we're actually loading in the image. Line 23, this is where we create our rectangle object, and we are setting the left top to whatever location. That's great, okay? But remember, we want to create a rect 1 and a rect 2. And the way you do that in Python is we need to copy that object. So we're going to say self.rect1 equals self.rect.copy. Okay, now that copies the object. Now you have to use the dot copy. You can't just say self.rect1 equals self.rect, because then anything you change in rect1 will be reflected in rect. That's what's known as copy by reference, and we need to actually copy the entire object. So in memory, we have a rect part of the memory, we have rect1, and now we're going to have a rect2. Okay, so very similarly, self.rect2 equals self.rect.copy. Okay, so now we have a rect1, rect2. And if we were to draw these, they would still be drawing right over top of each other because we haven't moved them. Now what we need to do is we need to have, rect1 being drawn like right where it needs to be, and then rect2 needs to be off the screen exactly, okay? And then we're going to shift them every frame, okay? So let's set up a couple little variables. Self.I. I tend to like to use I. I stands for index. It actually goes all the way back to Fortran programming, where I, J, K, and L were always the sort of indexes of loops and stuff like that. So you'll see a lot of for I equals whatever as you get into programming. But anyway, so self.I, we are going to say that is self.rect.w. Okay, because we want that I to be the width of whatever it is. So if the width is 200 let's just say it's 300, okay? So now I is now 300, okay? And then we are going to say let's just go ahead and say self.w equals self.rect.w. We're going to need to use the width of that rectangle quite a bit. So I just kind of want to create a little variable in there just to say that that's what we want to do. Okay, and then we need one other little thing, and that's basically this: self.rect2.left equals self.w. Okay, so let me explain that. Okay, so we got rect1. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. Maybe backwards, but whatever. I think you can handle it. And then here's rect2. So rect1 is what we're seeing right now, and then rect2 is just going to be off the screen and not being able to be seen because I set the left side of rect2 being the width of rect1. So it's off the screen. Okay? Does that make sense? Hope so. All right. And now, so if I were to scroll down here and take a look, basically we're blitting rect1 and then blitting rect2. So right now you're not going to see rect2 because it's off the screen, okay? But we are going to see rect1, and that's all good, okay? So we do need to create this base.update, okay? Base.update, and we can do that right here. We are going to create, that's actually part of the foreground class. So we're going to say def update. Okay, and then we're going to do a couple things in here. We are going to say self.rect. Let's see, rect1, because we're dealing with the first rectangle. Left, the left side of the first rectangle, is going to be self.I, which happens to be the width, minus self.width. Okay, so if you think about that, when the first time that's being called, self.I is equal to the width, self.W is equal to the width, so the left side of rectangle 1 is going to be 0, right? Okay, and now we need to do, let's see, we need to set the left side, so we're going to say self.rect2.left. Okay, so the left side of rectangle 2 is going to just be self.I. Okay, so whatever I is, so the left side of rectangle 1 is going to be 0, the left side of rectangle 2 is going to be whatever I is, which would be the width at the beginning, so like say 300. Okay, and then we are going to subtract 1 from I, minus equals 1, right? Okay, so we're subtracting 1 from I. The next time that gets called, it'll scoot over a little bit. And then we're going to say, but we got to be able to check to see if I hits 0, because if I hit 0, then we need to reset it. So we say if self.I equals 0, then we're going to say self.I equals self.W. Okay, so self.I, self.W. Okay, now I think that'll actually work. So let's try running it. And if you notice, our thing keeps going along. Okay, see how that works? Let me just show you one thing here. Let me change the width of our entire screen from 288 to say 500, and then you'll actually see the other what do I want to say, the other base. Okay, so let's see, that is down here. So let's change this to like 500. Okay, and when we run that, you will see how that's all the way moving across. Let's even go further. Let's go like 800. Yeah, so where that's breaking up is right here, and you can see the end of that, and then it comes back, and you can almost picture how that rotates around. See how that works? Isn't that cool? But just by changing that width, it allows us to see what's going on. All right, let's change that back to 288 where it belongs. And I think that's good for Flappy 3. All right, everybody, have a fantastic day, and we're going to begin on Flappy 4 in just a bit.